It may seem like there's an abundant supply of water in Oklahoma right now, but not long ago the state was in the throes of a multi-year drought. The cycle of rain and lack of it is as old as the planet, but demand in Oklahoma for water is growing and at a rate that makes it clear the next big drought will mean choices will have to be made on who gets how much water. Finding ways to avoid those choices is the focus of some Oklahoma communities and parts of state government.
Oklahoma's stated goal is to use no more water in 2060 than the state used in 2010. The options are limited to actually make that goal a reality.
And the only way that will happen is with conservation. That'll be a piece of it. But the biggest piece is going to have to be reuse. We're going to have to reuse the water we have now.
Ken Comiskey is Director of Utilities for the City of Norman, a community that continues to lead the nation in the amount of chromium-6 in their water, a known cancer-causing substance that scientists still disagree over how much is too much exposure. Studies by the Environmental Working Group show Norman's water has had the highest level of chromium-6 for the last 6 years, and the levels are getting higher. In 2010, the EWG study found 12.9 parts per billion of chromium-6 in Norman's water. New tests done this year show the level has jumped to 29.59 parts per billion. And those are averages. In this year's test, the results range from 0.04 to 97.38 parts per billion, which is barely under the EPA's current total chromium limit of 100 parts per billion. The city now has pilot projects underway to figure out the best way to get the chromium-6 out of their water supply.
It's using a biofilter to help remove the chromium. So it's a pilot project. It's attached to just one of our wells. The water's not put into the distribution system.
It's a year-long project that also involves two other approaches to removing chromium-6. John Waring is with Corolla Engineers, which designed the new filtration project at Norman.
Using biological removal techniques, that's pretty cool for removing metals. And two other technologies as well, reduction coagulation filtration process and an ion exchange process.
3 pilot projects at once gives Norman city officials some options.
And then we'll be able to compare them side by side for economics, for efficiencies, things of that nature. So this is a really benefit to our customers, and if it works, it's going to be a benefit to the rest of the country too, really.
The lengths the city of Norman is going to is based in part on the fact there is only so much water available, and with a growing community, the demand for water is increasing. Back in December, the governor created the Produced Water Working Group, a 17-member panel with a stated mission at the time of finding alternatives to injecting all oil and gas wastewater underground, something that has caused thousands of man-made earthquakes in recent years.
I think if we can look at reuse, look at water conservation, that it can be a win-win for all of us when it comes to utilization of water and some of the issues that we've been talking about, and especially with seismic activity.
But as it turns out, the governor's working group has actually been doing something else.
Really what we're trying to get to the bottom of, at least initially, is how much of this water are we talking about, where is it located, what is the water quality of that water, sort of by geolocation, and what are the end user requirements for that water.
And most importantly, according to Strong, is how much can the end users of this processed wastewater afford to pay for it, and how much will the treatment of the water cost the energy industry that produces it. Once that is known, Strong says it will actually be time to begin looking for alternatives to injection.
Then it's up to all the great ingenuity out there, the developers, the inventors, to come up with meeting these volumes, this water quality at this cost. Those will be the ones at the end of the day that may be in the game.
So far, the governor's working group has had 3 meetings, and their draft report is due out in December. Michael Dunkel is a vice president of CH2M, a Texas company that specializes in water management for the oil and gas industry. As a member of the governor's Produced Water Working Group, Dunkel is already lowering expectations of what their final report will conclude.
We don't have enough time nor money to do great in-depth detailed work here. I mean, and I think that that's really important because we're in a hurry. We're trying to get to some solutions quickly.
Solutions that the working group has found will not come easily.
Generally, for all of the non-oil and gas reuse, our working assumption is generally we're going to have to desalinate the water. And so that's a barrier in that it is a significant cost.
And research still has to be done to determine exactly what is in all that wastewater that comes up with oil and gas production.
What they haven't done is measure the water quality and report it to a federal agency or a state agency. So we're going to try to get information voluntarily from the oil and gas company.
Dunkel says if the state can find answers to all these questions, there is the potential of a major payoff in the end.
What about discharge to streams? Well, that's certainly possible, and in a sense you could solve two problems at the same time if you can get rid of a disposal problem and create source water.
A new water source that has been buried under Oklahoma since prehistoric times could be a whole new industry waiting to be developed if the science can be worked out. But just like treating the water in Norman for chromium-6, if such a thing can be done, it will increase the cost to the end users of that water.